If you were a mentee, what would you look for in a mentor? And the reason as the Roosevelt University brought that question up is because I think a lot of people just don't know. They don't know what type of mentor they're looking for, what type of mentee they should be. So if you were a mentee, what would you look for in a mentor? There you go. You got it, buddy.
I think if I was a mentee, one of the things that I would look for, I think in today's world, everybody is always trying to be politically correct. And I'm the total opposite of politically correct when I talk to young kids and when people ask me questions. I had two young men that I was talking to downstairs, and I would want someone to tell me how it really is. I think today we use too many cliches. We use the line that everybody else is using. Hey, go out and, be anything. I mean, you could be anything you want to be and, have faith, but it's a bunch of empty words. And if I was a mentee, I wouldn't want a mentor that was going to use a bunch of empty words and empty cliches. I want him to be just down and dirty with me about the trials and tribulations, how hard it's going to be, what it's going to take, the blood, sweat, and tears that you actually got to put into something to be successful. Because it's not, like you said, it's not as easy as it looks. It's not and Izzy could attest to this, to be a professional football player. There's days out there when you're throwing up your insides. Everybody can't do that. It's days when I'm sure you guys had sleepless nights and stayed up for days in a row just to figure out a problem. Everybody can't do that. Everybody's not built that way. And I think if I'm a mentee, I want to know that. I want to know coming into something what it's going to take so I could prepare myself, so I could have the correct mindset and the correct attitude going into something and not just be told the standard lines about how everybody looks at it and just be real, down and dirty, and give me the details that I'm going to need to take with me to go on my journey.
Be real, down, and dirty. I think that's a good nugget. Be real, down, and dirty. That sounds awesome.
Just to build on that for a second, it's so funny. I was just talking to another young gentleman who asked me, what's one tip that you'd have for success? And I was like, so you're looking for vague platitudes and such, try harder. And and the advice I gave was like, you should copy the shit out of every good idea that you see. Because that's it. That's like, life gets a lot easier if you realize that you don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. There's lots of people who've already figured out a lot of ways to be successful. And look at what Gary did. Gary didn't say, let me try to figure out how to be successful by going into a room for 10 years and coming up with ideas. He just asked, what did you do to make so much money? And then Gary just sponged it all in, oh, okay, I get it. He starts to see the patterns of what successful people do. My way of doing that was that as you heard very briefly, when I was 12, I started homeschooling. And as part of my curriculum, my parents pretty much stayed out of my way, and they let me study whatever I wanted. But one thing they did do, they insisted upon this, which was really smart. I totally hated it at the time. They had me read 4 short biographies of successful people every single day. Little magazine-length biographies. But this shattered my little 12-year-old brain into about 10,000 pieces. And I started to think really big. And I remember having this epiphany. I was like, I want to change the world. But that's the kind of epiphany you only have when you're sitting there all day immersing yourself into the ideas and lives of the most successful people of all time. And so you see these patterns coming up over and over and over again about what successful people, what they do. Mm-hmm. So that was like a way of getting mentoring without having to, Gary's version was actually asking them. My version was reading about them. But a lot of the same patterns are there. And if you would have asked them, they would have said the same things that they'd have in their biographies as well. So that I would second that. A general piece of advice on this would be, who teaches you right now? Who do you talk to and you feel like you're just learning from them? Whenever they're talking, you're learning. That's a good sign. That means if you actually were, Gary style, going up to them and asking them for advice, asking them for tips and help, they would probably continue to add value that way. That's my gut check in my business. If I'm trying to figure out, should I work with this partner or not? Should I work with a service provider? If I'm talking to a lawyer, do I feel like I'm learning? If I feel like I'm learning from them, that's usually a good sign that if I actually give them money, then I'll continue to learn from them and they'll do a good job at it. So, I agree.
Awesome.
Do I have
there you go.
I just want to add one thing that I agree with everything everyone said, and I think that everyone can see that there's this common denominator of reality. I think that we all live very real lives, and we don't try to use platitudes or present ourselves in a way that that is not true. But one of the things I'd love to say to all of you here is that you get a so if I was a mentee looking for a mentor, you get a very short time in life to prepare. And I know when you're really young, you think that it's forever, that you're young, but all of a sudden, everybody's getting younger all around me every day. But you get this special time as students. And one of the things that I think that I'd like to say to you, I have 4 daughters, they're all grown, they all went to school, they're all amazing. But I used to tell them, you get this short window to prepare, and school is a leg up. It's just having somebody go like this and give you a leg up. And the reality comes when school is done, and you get a short period of time where it's okay to prepare. I remember one of my daughters said to me one time when she was in college, Mom, college is great because it can be an excuse for anything. You can arrive late to something and go, I was studying, and they're like, oh, okay. And no matter what was happening in life, if you say you're a student, and I think the reason for that is because you are allowed a window as a young adult to prepare for your future that everyone supports. And I think that if true mentors can be part of looking at that in a new way, saying these days, these weeks, these months, these years of preparation include apprenticeships, include mentoring, then that will change the world.
There we go. That was really good. And if you all, again, y'all are just knocking it on the head. Be real, right? One thing you said, I think it's a lost art. You read. You read about people who are already successful. Even in our generation, read. I remember when I was in school, I was like, I'm done reading. I'm never reading another book ever in my life. So I think that's one thing. And then, preparation. They always say if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. So that's really good. I think.
Add to the mentoring, I would say look for somebody that shares experiences, not tells you how to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want shared experiences. You don't want people telling you what to do, or hey, this is the way I did it, you need to do it this way. You want people that share experiences and sharing their worst experiences and their challenges, even more importantly than their successes.
Speaking of failures, right? These are some of the famous failures that we all know about, right? Michael Jordan, remember, he was crying once he got cut from the basketball team. Oprah Winfrey, they said that she was not fit to be in TV. And even Walt Disney got fired because they said he didn't have an imagination, which is ironic. So, the one thing I wanted to show you all was this. A lot of successful people have failures, and we have 4 successful people on this panel right now. And I think if you all can give a soft skill approach to it, how do you cope with failure? Because I think everybody probably does it different. Or even what does failure mean to you as far as just in your life and what you're trying to accomplish?
Is not really in my vocabulary, but failure to me is an opportunity to learn. If you run up against a roadblock and it costs you a little bit, time, money, heartache, whatever it is, hopefully it's an opportunity to learn, understand what happened, why did things go bad, and now how do I learn? What's the learning experience? If you can learn from every challenge, then it's not really a failure,
To expand on that very briefly, one of my favorite metaphors is, so when I have to do something that I don't like doing, something that sucks, and I'm like, oh man, I have to go to this stupid meeting, or this is going to have this awful conversation with a team member. I think of it like General Patton used to go to the front lines once a month during the war, just so he'd have bullets flying at him, so they would just knock the fear out of him. So he thought of it like battle experience. So I think of it like I'm sort of like a character in an RPG, and I'm gaining experience points every time I have to do something that sucks, and I don't like doing. Every time I fail, like, okay, well I failed, but I gained some XP. So I just think about it like my whole life, I'm just kind of leveling up my character, getting more and more experience, so that even when something happens that is really unpleasant, really uncomfortable, and I fail, I at least get the solace of saying, well, I at least leveled up my character.
There you go. Was that helpful? Was that really helpful? Because I think our generation is scared to try because we think failure is wrong and failure is bad and failure is learning. John Maxwell has a great book out there. He says, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. It's never about failing. So that's really, really good.